Hi everyone. I was thinking today about the idea and the historical phenomenon of the amateur, since that's the name of my YouTube channel, and it's an idea that I'm trying to explore, not only in my own sort of self-challenging of learning skills that I didn't possess or haven't mastered, and through the process of videotaping them, kind of turbocharging my progress rather. I mean, it's something I recommend to everyone, of course musicians. There's no better way, no more merciless and acute way to understand and perceive your flaws than to tape yourself. But in any case, the idea of the amateur is interesting because historically, by weight of numbers, it's almost certainly amateurs who have most contributed to, let's just stay focused on the history of technology and art. So photography is a great example of this. Basically, most or nearly all of the major photographic innovations of the 19th century, from its development in the 1830s through the rest of the century, were the products, although decreasingly so, obviously, as certain kinds of institutional structures start to become built over the 19th century. But mostly, it's amateurs, people working in a context in which there is no framework institutionally. There is no professorship of photography at a university. There is no professionalized role of technical advisor, photographic technical advisor to industry, for example. And so if you think about all the way through from Niepce through Fox Talbot, I've been thinking a lot about the 19th century, the 20th century, and Ansel Adams, who is a great hero of mine and a massive influence on my photography. And there's a case, young Ansel was devoted to music, and he wanted to become a concert pianist, and trained obsessively. And unfortunately, poor Ansel's hands were too small, and that meant that he would never really have a great career as a concert pianist. Go away, Dobson fly. So at the same time, in his teens, he's becoming really interested in photography, and goes out. He becomes aware of pictorialism, which is sort of the leading aesthetic of the period, and works in that vein. And then he goes to Yosemite and has an experience of photographically manipulating the tonal range of the image in a way that is not naturalistic at all, but nevertheless is realized with a kind of tack-sharp intensity that was had to have arrived as a sort of shock to public consciousness that was attuned to pictorialism, this soft, fuzzy photography that looked like painting, that aimed to look like painting. And it was thanks to that, the success of those images, that he then was able to start selling his work, his photographic work, and kind of launch his career. So in that sense, it's the typical story of an artist who goes from being an amateur to a professional, becomes a professional artist. But what's unique about Ansel Adams is that moment of artistic inspiration, of turning the sky from a kind of banal pale tone to this utterly menacing and yet austere and cold black tone with its gradations that make you feel the granite, but also somehow transmuted into something something else. And so in any case, that moment of artistic inspiration, I don't have the timeline. I'm not a historian of photography, so, you can look up the timelines on this. I'm just working from, hazy memories. But that his development of what come to be known as the zone system, of establishing the tonal range of an image and shooting it, using the inherent properties of the type of film that you're using, the type of paper you're printing on, to establish absolute control over the tonal values of the image. And Adams did it on a scale of 10, from 0 to 10. So you're breaking down the image into sort of manageable quanta of tones, and because of your technical understanding of the camera, lighting conditions, exposure, the dynamic range of the film you're using, the dynamic range of the paper you're printing on, you actually have this sort of transcendent level of control of the image that you're producing that is nevertheless profoundly naturalistic in its basis. So there's the idea of the zone system and this kind of obsessive tinkering that the artist professional / mad scientist, that was Ansel Adams, did, basically turned him into a technical advisor to Kodak. And he sort of taught Kodak all of how to do it. His research was so rigorously scientific, but also so practical in its application, that he was able to fulfill that role. So there's a great example of the amateur whose work, the sort of scientific side of his artistic practice is really pursued within the context of a non-professional who is, and the point of all of this is what the advantage of the amateur has, or the professional who's working outside of the institutional framework of their field, is that of freedom. They're not spending their energies feeding the institution and following what the institution needs to establish as best practices. Artists, here's a best practice for artists. My advice to you is do not have best practices, because it is the departure from best practices, which you really can only do best or most easily outside of an institutional framework, that produces amazing wonders of human ingenuity, new ways of revealing the natural world, new forms and unimagined forms of beauty. And so I guess whatever this video was supposed to be, and I hope it's watchable, it looks really shaky, is really a sort of statement on some of my thinking behind the idea of the amateur. All right, thanks for watching, everyone.